How is it going, everybody? It's Thursday night, 8 p.m. You know what that means. It is time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we are here coming on the heels of the WWE Draft. 50,000 tickets being sold for AEW, but what should they actually do with that show? We're going to get into all kinds of stuff like that tonight, folks. Glad you're here. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now. Hello again, everybody. It's Thursday night. Your Big Gold Wrestling podcast is here live and getting it done. Glad you're here with us. It's Will here with Najir, Jamal, and Damian G from all over the United States in different locations as we are on the heels of an eventful week between ticket sales and people moving around and companies. There's a lot of things I would say in flux this week, it seems. Not necessarily news, but things are happening. Things are happening that I think will have long-term ramifications. That'll probably be a bit of a theme tonight here. Season 3, episode 14 of your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. Gentlemen, how is everyone doing on this fine Thursday night?
It's been a dark week.
Literal. Dark outside, dark all week. Yeah.
I think we will be getting into that theme of darkness later on in the show. There's definitely things happening that are maybe bringing an end to some darkness, but we'll talk about that a little later. Two James, how you doing up there to the left of me on the top of the screen?
Oh, I didn't realize I was on mute. I'm doing good, man. Not that bad.
You might have just got lost in the shuffle there. I don't think you were on mute. I heard everybody else except for you. So making sure we get everybody in here a little bit before we get started. So, yeah, it's been a week, and I guess it started last Friday, continued into Monday. Of course, it was draft week for WWE, and when we met last week, of course, nothing had happened yet. We were kind of thinking what was going to happen, who would get moved where, but now we here in the aftermath of the deck has been shuffled, people have been moved around, we have free agents apparently in the mix, and all kinds of things. But I guess the first topic of the evening is winners and losers of the WWE Draft, because there's definitely some people that look like they're in some prime positions, maybe some other people not so much, but I think the word I would use to describe this draft when it was all said and done, this felt like they made some aggressive moves, in my opinion. It was my kind of thoughts. And I'm basing that kind of on they did a lot of call-ups from NXT. A big chunk of like NXT got removed and moved up to both shows. And other than that, it felt like they were really trying to set things up because, for the last one things we talked about in the past couple of weeks is they have not really been strict to like a Raw roster, a SmackDown roster for a long time now. So I think they went hard with the idea of like, okay, we need to make two distinct rosters of people here if we're really going to do this and try to go down this path again. So I think they did really hard with the idea of like, we're dividing people up and we need tag teams and we need women and we need women's tag teams. And we got to really lock this in with a division of people here. But I think an aggressive draft is what I was feeling coming out of things. Damian, let's go to you first. I guess initial thoughts, just in general, on how this has all shook out over the last couple days.
Look, going back to when we had the Paul Heyman era of SmackDown, the draft for me has gone down and down and down. And after watching this past week, unfortunately, man, you know what? good for NXT people. That's the first thing I'm going to say. But some of them were surprising to be called up. And I think we'll get into that. But overall, if I'm looking at the rosters, I think SmackDown won. Just looking like from top to bottom. I mean, my favorite wrestler of all time, Grayson Waller, got drafted to SmackDown. So there's a win right there. But if you really look at the Raw roster versus the SmackDown roster, there is a lot of, I don't want to say young, but hungry talent when you get to the mid-card or people that we really don't know a lot about. Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, for instance. The LWO is still going to be the punching bags of SmackDown. Asuka went back. That's great. And Rick Boogs, for some reason, is still here. And Cameron Grimes to the moon finally gets to make his debut on the main roster. So I'd say so far SmackDown won, but I would have to see it play out in real life to see what happens.
Good point. That's, of course, the biggest thing right now is none of this is in stone yet, or in practice, I should say. Yeah, all this starts on Monday. We got to get through Backlash first, so we have this idea, but we haven't seen any of this acted out yet. Lord knows anyone from NXT that got the call, they haven't shown up yet. They were all hanging out at the Performance Center, high-fiving each other for getting their win in there. 2 Chainz, here's what I'm thinking. What jumps out to you as like some of the biggest moves?
Wrong question.
Even if it's just like, even if it's just flip-flopping sides, or
just wrong question. Because listen,
wrong question. Okay, get in here then.
Nah, seriously.
What you got?
Seriously, that was again. I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely loved Jock commentary last week on the show. Listened in, even though I wasn't on it. I don't like the draft because, like, as a sports fan, and as the NFL draft is right there in your face,
correct.
You're looking for a level of like authenticity to how this is done. The free agent thing is blasphemy. That makes no sense. And then what's interesting is that while we see people move from NXT to SmackDown and Raw, well, we've seen in the last few months people also be sent back to NXT, which I think was also a component that should have been a part of this as well too. So there's parts of it that just doesn't make sense and is totally a head scratcher to me. But I will allow this to play out a couple of weeks to kind of see, how does this come into fold? Damian brings up a point, and the name I thought he was going to mention was Odyssey Jones, somebody that we haven't got a lot of in NXT and got moved to Raw. So I'm like, okay. Then the logic of draft picks. You start going after champions. You go after the NXT tag champions. You go after the NXT women's champion. So you don't pick Melo? I'm confused about the logic of this. I'm thinking all right, Grayson Waller, definitely, number one contender, just lost the match. Cool. He's definitely a candidate, and that makes sense. Everybody knows it makes sense. But then you're like, I ain't saying no names here, but you think that person went and not Melo? I'm confused about the logic in the navigation of the draft picks. And again, I get it that it's storylines, but you're making the draft a storyline. So why not make it legitimate then? Instead of it just being we're just gonna use this mechanism in order to shift people around. Forget all your logic. Forget everything that you've known in the last few months or a year. Forget that the NFL draft is on the other channel. We're just gonna kind of do it our way, and hopefully you guys just turn a blind eye to some of the stupidity that is happening right now. You don't get drafted and you become a free agent, and that means that you can go to both rosters. Well, why wouldn't you want that? If the goal is the gold, wouldn't you want your opportunities to be available everywhere instead of just limiting yourself on one brand? Make this make sense to me. So that's a little frustrating to me. But I will say, in terms of a pick that I have my eyes on, I also go right back to Damian on this, and it is Grayson Waller. And the reason why I am excited to see him, besides being a fan, besides him really just becoming a star, got a chance to talk to him WrestleMania weekend. I've been loving what he's been doing the entire time NXT. But let's remember where he got his start. NXT 2.0. I think he is the true testament of if that NXT 2.0 system works. I know it's gone, but there was some stars that kind of rose from within. But the ultimate goal is to get to the main roster. So now that we have sort of our first graduating class, let's see if Grayson Waller, the character of Grayson Waller, can live up to everything that he was built upon on NXT 2.0, then NXT 3.0, 1.5, whatever you want to call it after that. So I think he's going to be really the ones to keep an eye on to see the others that follow behind him. And last thing, Indy Hartwell is absolutely a pick that I love, but we also could have said a month ago that's also a person we wanted to win the champion. I think with her injury, I think this is literally the best thing they could have did for her. This just makes sense. Wins the championship and automatically gets put into a roster and a scenario that we can buy into. We're going to dig her little relationship thing. So like, hey, she can be on TV without actually doing anything and stay relevant. I think that's a good look for her.
All right, quick before we jump into Giant Crab here, we got PAW in the comments here breaking it down like this. SmackDown has the stars and characters. Raw got the wrestlers who can put on 5-star matches. That's an interesting take on it that I'm thinking now. I'm like, okay, wait, now who ended up where? Who the stars, of course, of SmackDown probably got to be the Bloodline, of course. Bloodline still resides on Friday nights. But okay, who would be the workhorses on Raw getting the 5-star matches here?
So let's just say really quickly, if that's entirely true, the philosophy of this has completely changed ever since SmackDown went to Fox, because Fox got the athletes, the workhorses, the notable names, the names that is marketable outside of just wrestling. Right. That statement says we have some nostalgia act here, but we also just have a bunch of characters. This goes back to old school wrestling, the folks who wanted to tune into wrestling because they love wrestling. It feels like a thing of like, it doesn't have anything to do with Fox now. This is just a different style of wrestling from Raw being the A show with the A wrestlers that's doing wrestling and not just the entertainment. So,
all right. So bringing up the free agent idea so we can throw this to Crab to get in here. Since Brock Lesnar apparently negotiated his contract to be a free agent, they said on the show. That's how he got it. Apparently he negotiated the mega deal to be a free agent. Seemingly in perpetuity. Does that make Brock Lesnar the most valuable wrestler on the WWE roster? What do you think, Crab?
Wait. I'm sorry, Jamal. I'm sorry. You get drafted, you get a contract. No one gets drafted and says, I don't want that. Make me a free agent and then leaves the money on the table, because that's how it works. Because
Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar does.
Clearly, and Omos too, apparently. So, Jamal, go ahead. I'm done. I'm on mute.
I had questions about the free agent thing. So, if they're a free agent, aren't technically all of the NXT roster free agents?
I guess in relation to Raw and SmackDown, they probably are. Yeah,
Throw me a piece of popcorn, Damien.
Because I mean, if it is a thing where they're part of the company, but they're not on Raw and SmackDown, then they should be a free agent anyway, right? And one thing about the draft, and I think the biggest thing that I don't like, is that it's only once a year. It doesn't really make sense that it's once a year. There should be a trade deadline, and maybe that's a thing. And then the trading season should be a thing. So maybe you have the draft, and maybe trades are only allowable up to the Royal Rumble or something like that. So that way the rosters are set before WrestleMania. There's a couple of different things they can do with it in a sports related way. But it just seems that this is our soft reset, and we need a vehicle for that soft reset, when realistically they can call up anybody from NXT for any reason or send them down any time of the year. And it's not a draft thing. Like the two general managers and the Fox robot aren't getting together, trying to get cash considerations and Girl Scout cookies. So if you're going to go through the trouble to make it a thing, then make it a thing. If you're not, then just move around anyway, because it's not like everybody doesn't know that if you work for WWE, you work for WWE no matter which show you wrestle on. Right. So, it's just a bit confusing how they went through such great lengths to make it a thing that doesn't really make it a thing. As far as the draft itself, it's just reshuffling the deck chairs. I'm not saying that I don't know who would, if there's a clear winner, because obviously different shows have different motivations for what they want. But it definitely seems that for the draft itself, I don't mind it. Like in past years, it's been completely one-sided. They've stacked the roster on one show and then kind of left the other one hanging out to dry. But it is a different roster now. So, and then there are other people that may not even be around for the roster because Black Trash Bag season hasn't hit yet. So, it's just a big old wait and see. But my thing is that like there should be the whole NXT should be on like the practice squad then, if that's the case.
I mean, if anyone came out on the short end of the stick, in my mind, it was NXT because they weren't moving anyone down to NXT. It was just, we're taking about the middle of that card and just scooping them up. We're taking your women's champ. We're taking the women's tag champs. Where it's like, okay, take them, take Pretty Deadly. Just cherry picking NXT like anything. Like Raw and SmackDown both definitely came across like they both got fortified with this thing. But NXT, it's like, man, they better have a new class of folks ready for a TV to level or up. Something. Yeah. The level up kids must be ready for Tuesday nights. Yeah, that's probably what it's got to be because there is some space in NXT now that was not there before after this week.
So, go ahead, Touche.
Oh, I was just going to say, so, I think y'all bring up interesting points. And I think we know that there's signings happening. We just had a major signing announced all over all the major outlets. I would love to see NXT, Sean make an announcement and saying, hey, we got to restock the roster. I think it's time to start calling up the NIL folks. Graduating classes should be, May. So some people should be done with school. But I think they should make an announcement to say like, hey, we're getting ready to bring some new folks in and do a little thing about them. It's not unheard of for them to have a whole little ceremony of new folks entering their roster. And I think they should do that to have folks. Because when you talk about like NXT being hurt, for the folks who care about NXT, you may have turned in to see Grayson Waller. If he's not there, you're thinking, well, who in the world is about to fill that slot? Who am I going to be? Well, and they got snubbed, by the way. But I think they should do something that does introduce their new signees or their new folks being called up from the NIL, the Performance Center, whatever it's going to be. And I think that'd be a good look. Also, where the hell is what's his name? The Olympic gold medalist dude,
Gable Steveson.
He just wrestled again, like college.
Mm-hmm.
Like he went back. Yeah. He went back and like dominated some tournament last weekend. So
okay.
He apparently has not totally completely retired from what we're seeing.
From collegiate wrestling, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just going to say it. You know how where in NBA, NFL, we have these gurus, right? These draft gurus, Woj Bombs, Mel Kiper Jr. This would have been the perfect opportunity to have Pat McAfee do his best Mel Kiper impersonation and talk about the highlights if you want to make this into a draft. Like the measurables, they want to do 40 times, that's fine. But at least give people backstory on the new people coming up from NXT or someone that we may never have seen before if you're a casual fan. So obviously I would have loved to have seen what Odyssey Jones's NFL Combine numbers would have been had he got, the call up that way. But I really think, I don't know what Pat's availability is, but man, that would have been a great opportunity to have him be the Mel Kiper of WWE draft season, or even the trade deadline, like Wojnarowski over there at ESPN.
Hey, if he comes in and be like Todd, I would lose my mind. But hey, you bring up another point. The WWE has done a combine before. Yep. I think I loved it, by the way, and I also asked Bianca Belair about that. Like, just. What did it mean to like be a part of that, and what did that kind of do in terms of her career? And like beyond the personal things it did for her, the exposure it did for us, to see what she was doing. These are legitimate combine drills. This is no joke. Right. You see her perform the way she is, you're like, oh nah, this is a star. I don't care what she does in the ring. This is a star. Like she's out here putting people to shame. And I think think about this now. This NIL class that's coming in fresh out of college, let them get to do it. Oh my God, it would be impressive. We can automatically start putting our eyes on folks saying, yeah, that person's going to be good. That person's going to be special. Help. Let them be helped out before WWE even do anything. Let them get that PR work from us, that PR exposure from us before they even get to do anything in the ring.
that thinking about it that way, it's like NXT shouldn't have a draft per se, like, Raw and SmackDown do. It should more so be after the draft. They then have like their new incoming recruits or something, and you phase them in, do video packages on them, and like do that to like replenish it. Maybe that's the idea they're going to go with. I mean, they're definitely not doing things the way they've always done it in the past right now. So fingers crossed, maybe something like that will happen in NXT to freshen up the scene there and just to do a different approach on this. I think that was what I was really curious to see is, Vince is still involved and he's around, but things aren't exactly like they've been done in the past anymore. So this was the first draft to be like, okay, this could be different in some ways. It didn't feel drastically different, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm a bit more hopeful about this. And I figure with the introduction of that damn new title, I figure they gotta, for at least a bit, they're gonna have to try to make this work since they went through all this trouble to bring in a whole new belt and all this. Now, Lord knows we may be sitting here in a month and we'll already be talking about the Bloodline showing up on Raw when they're not supposed to be on Raw anymore. But for the moment, at least, I'm thinking, all right, they got a new title they want to get off the ground. They want to try and really make this a thing. If they want to have the Bloodline only on Monday and Bloodline on Friday and the Judgment Day on Monday, let's see if they really do this and how strict of a line they stick with. Lord knows in the past, it could disappear on a week's notice, but I don't know. I'm a bit more hopeful than I have been in the past about how they might make this work. I don't know. Any other thoughts on the draft, or is it time to move on?
You want to hit that comment real quick?
Let's see what we got here in the comments. What we got here? We're our breakdown of the workhorses. Okay, the Raw workhorses: Apollo, Gable. Yeah, I forgot about Chad Gable, Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Balor. Oh yeah, okay, so you're all damn Imperium. JD McDonough, Johnny Gargano, Kevin Owens, Ludwig Kaiser, Ricochet, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, Nakamura. Well, when you break it down like that, you got man has a point. And
I mean, like, and also this is Raw, so that means like you look at these names, potentials for who's going to be the inaugural champ. It's a case you can make for almost anybody. I mean, hell, we love some Gable here. Imagine that. Last thing I'm going to say is Natalia said in a podcast, and I can't credit because I just was overlooking, had said that just because I was drafted to Raw doesn't mean I can't be. I won't show it to SmackDown. I think
she's already poking holes in it.
So defeats the purpose again.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that was the move. I mean, I get if you're like a heel and whatever, but like again, the legitimacy of the draft, and again, I think by doing the draft and doing it on Raw and SmackDown, having folks being aware that it's draft season, NFL's right there, all these little sorts of WWE isms that's happening, that's going to turn folks off from being like, wait, what? Because it's Friday night. You got it on the screen. You got people watching. People going to be like, what's this? Oh, WWE draft. Oh, I used to watch WWE. Oh, they got a draft. What does this mean? Oh, blah, 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 negotiated a deal so that they can show up to any show, which in theory, that's like, somebody got drafted to the Cleveland Browns, but they said, I'm not going there, but I can play for any team I want after that. No, you have to be signed to play for that team. So I don't know. It's weird.
So what's the over under months wise that the draft is going to hold still, like these rosters? I say 3 months.
Right now, I'm going to give them to Money in the Bank.
Okay.
I think they got to. I think they're going to. Because, the new champion crowned at the end of May, and then I figure they'll give it one more month with the split titles with 2 definite champions. And if things aren't clicking by then, they may hit the panic button by Money in the Bank. Around 4th of July, things might get a little like, this ain't working. We got to get things right for SummerSlam. I could see them being like, we got to get things right for Detroit.
One question. What are they going to do with the women's champions?
You mean from NXT?
I assume there's a belt swap coming, but they haven't said.
But like, while some people may be in favor of that, some people may not. I think there's an issue here is that Bianca Belair is on a historical run.
Historic run, yeah.
So you cut it because of the draft?
They need to rename those damn belts so Raw and SmackDown is not like in them and they're not color coded and they can be on whatever show they're on.
Right.
You know,
like you could have like the Women's World Heavyweight Championship or whatever championship, and then the WWE Women's Championship, like we do with the men's. Simple. But no, they want to overcomplicate it with another belt swap.
And I think, and honestly, Damien, that's the way they got to do it, because that's the only way this makes sense for Bianca Belair. You don't let her historical run in because of a belt swap. But if you give her a new title and she becomes the inaugural champion off break, it's kind of a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at our half. We're close to it enough.
Close to it.
So we can, as we've done that holder deal. Hey, maybe they do new belts. Exactly. Yeah. New belts. Get rid of the red and blue belts. That's what I want to see, is color-coded titles can go. And please do that for those tag ones too, because the color coding of the belts is just old and it just causes more problems than it needs. Anyway, enough about the draft. We are at halftime. So when we come back from halftime, it will be the Indie Wrestling Spotlight that we do every week. And then after that, we will switch gears to AEW, because they are moving tickets in the UK. And the twist is they're moving all these tickets with not a damn thing announced. So we got to talk about what the hell do you do in Wembley Stadium? Because you got a whole lot of people coming, but nothing been said about what it's going to be. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back right after this. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be right back.
Big Gold Belt Media is your golden standard for all of your media needs. Visit BigGoldBelt.com for pro wrestling info, movies, comics, and even more digital content. On all of your social medias, follow us at Big Gold Belt all across the board. Listen to this show and more on your SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello again, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We are back from halftime, and at this time of the night, we always like to check out what's going on the indie scene. So, Giant Crab, get in here with the Big Gold Belt Podcast Indie Wrestling Spotlight.
And this week, we're going to go all the way out to the West Coast for the Queen of the Indies, brought to you by Pro Wrestling Revolution. That's May the 13th, next weekend, Mother's Day weekend. So, take mom to an all-women's wrestling show. Why not? It's at the it's Pro Wrestling Revolution, and West Coast Pro presents the Queen of the Indies 2023. A lot of interesting matches in the tournament. We got a couple of tag matches. It looks like a full house next weekend, and that's 6 p.m. local time out there in San Francisco. The United Irish Cultural Center, 2700 45th Avenue in San Francisco. Basically, it's by the zoo, if you're familiar with San Francisco, out near Ocean Beach. So, take Muni, pack your patience, and get out there and see some wrestling Mother's Day weekend for West Coast Pro and Pro Wrestling Revolver. It's the Queen of the Indies, tournament in San Francisco. You can get your tickets at qoitickets.com, or you can watch it on independentwrestling.tv. You check out West Coast Pro. They have all their information on their Twitter, WC Pro Official. But it's Queen of the Indies in San Francisco next weekend, May 13th, a Saturday at 6 p.m. 45th and Slowed out there at Ocean Beach area, San Francisco, near the zoo. Looks like a hell of a card. I think I will be watching that on independentwrestling.tv. And that's the Indie Spotlight for this week.
Awesome. If people take their moms to indie wrestling on Mother's Day, I want to hear about it. That is a story I want to hear from some folks if that goes down. And hey, why not? Out of the box idea there for a Mother's Day activity to do. So interesting stuff. Awesome. Good stuff happening down the West Coast. The indie scene is getting hot again. This summer is just, I think, going to be a lot of damn shows going on. People are out and about, so that's good to see. In other news, people moving tickets and all this. What was it, 2 days ago? Yeah, it's been 2 days. So 2 days ago, the tickets for Wembley Stadium went on sale.
Make sure you know how many tickets were sold, because
I know where we're at right now, because it keeps changing. It's going up. I'll give them that.
Yeah, there's a whole Twitter fuss about people reporting different numbers and people.
Between that and what the configuration is, and there's. I don't want to upset Tony. I don't need no smoke from Tony, because I got to give the man credit. The tickets are getting sold.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's scalpers or not. And I'm not claiming it's scalpers. Hell, money's money. Either way, the tickets are getting sold. That's the big thing right now. So for what I'm hearing before we went on the air tonight, he's claiming we're at 50K have been sold for this thing so far. So they're moving. They are moving.
All I know is, and we're gonna redact this name, but all I know is codename Alligator is doing his work right now.
Oh no! If folks are looking for a ticket package, there's probably someone they can look to. Yes. My God, blast from the past right there. Okay, yes, sir. Anyway, 50,000 tickets already moved for All In Wembley Stadium. And I think the most interesting part of this is just on the idea of AEW doing a show in Europe, first time over there. And clearly people are hungry for AEW in the UK and in Europe because they are handing over that money quick.
Yeah.
The big question to me, though, is what is this show going to be? Because we got nothing announced. The most we have is a graphic. And I guess people are assuming, well, who's on the graphic will be on the show, but there's no guarantee of that. I would think, all the big names are going to be on there, but you never know. There's time between now and August when this happens, and we don't have anything announced or even teased of any sort. So I don't know. Who would like to jump in here first? What do you do with this show? Well, with it being such a big spectacle already, 50,000 people, what should AEW, you think, do that's worthy of this big of a deal where clearly they're going to want all eyes on them with 50,000 people there, or possibly more by the time this is happening? Hell, let's just start at the top. What the hell should a main event possibly be on this show?
Well, if it's not QT Marshall versus...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Then it really doesn't matter to me.
QT got to fill the stadium.
I mean, that's the only reason why I'm interested. It's the only reason. But the question is, of course, what should the thing be? I think the first question is, what should it look like? Wembley Stadium is an 85, 90,000 seat soccer stadium. Okay, cool. But will they go the WWE route with the WrestleMania-like presentation? You have, will it be like a giant Tower of London? Or will they do what WWE did in Wales and have a giant video board castle? What will this thing actually look like? And that's interesting to say because AEW doesn't spend a lot on production. Whoever made the LED board is, just raking in money forever because that's pretty much what everybody does now and just programs them and it looks good. And that's all it is. With that said, if they want to go all in, does that mean that they just go all in and have a big, massive production, which cuts out maybe 20,000 seats or so in one end of the stadium? Who knows what that is going to look like? Or do they go to WWE SummerSlam type of route where it's a very small entrance? The Royal Rumble, for example, really small entrance, small footprint, and so that they can pack in more people. So are we looking at 50,000 encroaching on 60? Or are we looking at 50,000 encroaching on 85? That's going to be an interesting thing. Now, or will they just do what they did in New York for Grand Slam and just keep scaling it up until they didn't need to scale it anymore? And that's what they did both times. They set a mark. We're going to scale it to 15,000, and then as the demand needed it, they scaled it up to 19 and change or whatever. They could do that. So as far as not announcing the any participants, not announcing the card, that's fine. I mean, they have a pay-per-view to get over, which will be at the end of the month. They'll need to fill out whatever their summer is going to be because the other pay-per-view is the week out. So that actually comes to the third biggest question is, will this complement or detract from All Out, which is the next week? Can AEW actually do 2 pay-per-view events in a row? Also, actually, is this a pay-per-view? Or is this just England's largest house show?
Yeah, at this point, it hasn't been said that's a pay-per-view.
Right. It hasn't been said that it's even going to be televised. We just know the thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's going to be recorded, but we don't know if it's going to be televised. This could just be the world's largest house show. And they could just do a thing. It's a one-off show. Nothing really matters. You get to see your people. You get to have fun. 4 good hours. Don't put too much thought in it. Do the show. Go back home. Go back to Chicago or wherever All In's going to be. And then continue the storylines that way. It would be smart for them to do that because I don't know who's going to pay for a pay-per-view twice. The thing's in England. And the large lion's share of their audiences in America and Canada. I don't know if they can get away with a 3 o'clock, Dynamite, because that would be 8 p.m. in England, or whatever the show may be. Who's going to air that? Is Turner going to air it? Will that conflict with other sports? Because Turner's not going to give up, other sports for that. So there's a lot of those questions still remain to be seen, and we have until August to figure it out. Well, they have until August to figure it out. But I think, there are interesting things. Obviously, people are really fixated on the numbers and, the accuracy of the numbers. And, okay, fine. I mean, they do it with WWE, too. WWE says that 7.8 billion people were inside of Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania 20. All right, cool. Oh, yep. That's literally the entire Earth. And they all went to the Garden. They were up in section 500, up in the upper rafters. It doesn't really matter how many people go because you're not going to be able to hear on your shitty 2-channel audio system the difference between 55,000 people and 75,820. So your headphones ain't good enough to hear the difference. So let's just pump the brakes on that a little bit and actually focus on something that's a little bit more pressing. A pressing issue is if this show is All In and it turns out to be a bare bones house show. Is that the definition of All In? And I think a lot of people could be disappointed at the presentation because they went to Wembley instead of the O2 or Manchester Arena or a smaller venue. They went to Wembley. They sold out a venerable event in their 100th anniversary to put on a house show where they come out of a closet behind the curtain with the Ring of Honor, Sanyo from 2012.
I love that shit.
I mean, I do too, but that's not the definition of massive investment spectacle that we are used to seeing from wrestling.
Well, there's definitely a segment of folks that I'm sure are just looking at this as a stadium show, and now with these numbers out, we're in the 50K range. Damn well there's people being like, they got to have like a WrestleMania level presentation. There are some people that will be disappointed if they do not get that, and there's no reason for them to technically expect that at this point, because that hasn't been AEW's calling card previously. They haven't done any big pay-per-view sets or anything like that for the most part. So let's I mean, we're all here. Let's not speculate here. Let's ask the real questions here. Jamal, my first question is, what's it going to take for you to want to cover it? You cover AEW for us.
You paying for my ticket to London?
I mean, besides us going into the piggy bank, what would actually make you want to go? I mean, this is a big question because you coming from a media standpoint, what excites you for this? And then the other general question is, while Jamal is world traveled and I can speak for myself as well, but like there were going to be some folks that's going to be like, oh, it's London. They don't know the history of Wembley. They don't even know the excitement of why Wembley is a draw. They're just like AEW London. Oh my God, I've never been. I want to go. So I think understanding what you're getting yourself into, besides setting expectations, is more or less like the logical way to go about this. But you are going to have folks that's going to think, oh, it's a pay-per-view. It's overseas. It's got to be big. We don't know what it's going to be. But to have that expectation.
Let me answer your first question real quick. Because you asked me, like, legitimately, what would it take for me to get over there? And this is the honest to God truth. The show's on a Sunday night. I'm not going. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If it were a Saturday night, cool. The show ends. I could be home, on Sunday. And this is personally because, and this is like the whole stuff with Dark notwithstanding. Full Gear is when I checked out of AEW. That was the moment where I said, "This is where I get off the bus." Largely because they've turned into, and they have to, a centrist wrestling program and they need to capture more casuals. That's not what they started off with, but there are only so many hardcore fans in the pot before you need to reach out and branch out and expand your audience. And the only way to do that is to placate to everyone, and they're starting to do that more. That's not what I want to see. That's not what I want to watch. So I watch Dark. Rest in peace. But why would I fly to London? And granted, from here, it's a smooth 7-hour jaunt nonstop. If you are going to be, paying for my flight, I'm going to need that premium economy. I'll give you my United miles, my United account number. Let's let you know that.
Need you to stretch out there.
Yeah, we can talk. We can talk logistics. But the idea is, if this is going to be the show, and I see the people that are on the thing, it would have been different if it were. I would have been more excited if it were AEW and Progress putting together a joint show. It would have AEW and Rev Pro, AEW Pro Wrestling Eve, or whoever, all of them, OTT up in Ireland, bring them in, all of them. If it were that, if it were like, oh damn, we're going to get Joe Hendry version, and so on. If it were that,
the UK Forbidden Door instead of like the
essentially, yeah,
exactly, exactly. Then I would have been more interested in the possibility of the unexpected. But do I want to fly to London for essentially at this point, because we don't know what it is. But since nothing's been announced, there's nothing to announce. So I'm going to call it that. It's a house show. No matter how you slice it. And they're doing a house show not this weekend, next weekend in Kentucky. It's their second house show that they're doing in this House Rules tour. Look at that lineup card with the roster that they have, and look at the card in London. You tell me what the difference is going to be.
So, and also too, I think like we got put into consideration, what is All In? And for the folks who know and was there upon the tweet, upon the gamble into the moniker of All In and actually going all in, you can't capture that nostalgia again. This is never going to happen again for a while. It's gonna take a lot of different stars to align for something like that to happen again. So the nostalgia of what All In is obviously in identity, should I say, cannot be captured with this. You're just using it because you got the property, which in this case too, if you are going to do and try to at any bit echo or mirror what All In was, then you have to have the AEW folks versus the ROH folks of some sorts. But again, what does that look like? What is that going to be?
Well,
We've seen it
All In is a metaphor. I don't think it's necessarily a metaphor with. I think it is a metaphor with the sense that they are investing in the UK, that they're going all in on the UK for their fans. Okay. Step one, renting, a large venerable stadium. Step two, featuring a lot of UK stars, especially in their presentation, their advertising, and stuff like that. Having multiple pre-sales, they want everybody to come out. It's going to be a big deal. The problem that I have with that is that a lot of the interest is based on the potential, right, the possibility, of it being the UK fans' wet dream of a wrestling show. It's not based on anything in reality. It's based on people wanting to hear UK soccer chants for 5 hours in a wrestling show. It's based on the fact that they're going to get Bill Ospreay versus Zachariah Sabre Jr. on an AEW show. It's based on the fact that they're going to get, Chris Jericho versus Robbie Brookside or something like the possibilities of a UK. Nigel McGuinness is in AEW all of a sudden. Does he get a retirement match? It's based on potential. And to be frank, I wipe my ass with potential. I need results. I need facts, because the investment for anybody to go to a show is multifold. It's not just about me flying across the Atlantic 7 hours and paying the hotel, paying the cost, buying an Oyster card and traveling around London. Even if you're already over there, you still need to take time off of work, school, whatever you got going on. It's an investment. And for those that have never been lucky enough, that paywall is broken, because if you're a UK resident, if you're an EU resident, You don't have to fly across the Atlantic. If you're a UK resident, you don't need a passport to see the show. It's based on that potential that this thing is hyped. That's why 50,000 people are already got their foot in the door. I've been to 20 AEW shows. Do I need to go to a house show just because it's at Wembley? For me, that's a no. Unless I get business class on British Airways with the lounge access at Dallas. We could talk about that later.
Yeah, just for you to get there and then don't go to the show anyway.
You already know that I'm skipping the show and going to the Harry Potter exhibit at Universal Studios. But again, we talk about that later. But I don't want to sound like I'm just putting this in a disparaging light because I have a feeling about AEW right now. But the very simple truth is we don't know what this is. And if it is a house show, AEW does damn good wrestling and they can put on a damn good show. That's not what my concern is. My concern is that the endless bitching and moaning from people that expected this thing to be the world, and all they get is a house show. Cool for you. Get your merch. But nothing's been presented, and then, of course, this thing has already taken a life of its own. But the internet's going to internet, so I'll be good to watch it. And if it comes on TV, hey, 3 o'clock, I can watch it then. But if it doesn't, it's a Sunday.
So I'll try to be brief with mine. I thought about it, literally thought about it when I first heard that they were going to do this show. I was at the original All In before it became AEW, and that was special. This, on the other hand, for me, this feels nothing more than a Saudi show for the WWE.
Oh.
I feel like, in my opinion, that's what this feels like, because I started to realize, what would I be going for? Am I going for the wrestling, or am I going to say I went to the UK just to go to the UK to see a wrestling show? Did it have to be AEW? That's why I was starting to think about it when the tickets went on sale. I said, do I really care about who's on the card? I barely watch AEW now. And I think a lot of people, bots included, are just thinking about the resale market also, about these desperate American fans who love AEW, who will drop whatever to go there and miss 7 days of work and pay whatever copious price, ubiquitous prices they want to pay. Me personally, I can't go. I can't convince myself enough to go. God would have to be wrestling Jesus for me to actually go over to the UK to say, you know what, I flew whatever 1,000 miles from Texas just to see God versus Jesus. Cool. Will Ospreay versus Zack Sabre Jr. Seen it before in the States. Don't need to go over there for it again. So kudos to the Wembley fans that are going to be able to see this, because we know the UK is a great draw because of their fans. They will show up. They will make this an event in and of itself. Now, the wrestling, the card, it has to be a one-off. It can't have any ramifications. It can't have any kind of belt implications or storylines. Make it like ECW One Night Stand when they first dropped it in the WWE banner, where they just had dream match.
Greatest hit show.
That should be their goal for this. It should not be anything that's going to impact the storylines or the talent in that kind of way.
Okay, Paul in our comments again broke down like this. You could say All In is them investing in themselves and taking a chance, which is, kind of what the first All In was all about. I think the only difference with this one is just it's their European debut. Correct. So it's them investing in Europe as a marketplace is what I think they're looking at it as. In my mind.
It is totally different when any level of gambling. When you go all in, that means either I'm going to win here or I'm going home broke. Mm-hmm. How does that apply to Tony Khan? So when these group of folks, Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, decide to do that, they had no backing originally. No one believed in them. They did it. They got sponsors, and folks got into it. But yeah, they had to empty out their bank accounts in order to go all in, to put on a wrestling show, a major wrestling show that had not ever been, the likes of it had never been seen before. So All In, that's why it was special, because it was like, holy shit. Like, not only are we about to get matches we've never seen before, But also, too, this was a small version of the Forbidden Door. You had ROH folks coming in. You had the Bucks and them fresh off of their contract in New Japan. This looked like what the future of wrestling was going to be. What would wrestling outside of WWE looks like? This is the birth of AEW. It's the ramifications aren't the same. So I think like saying All In is like, okay, cool, because you got the rights to it and fine. But like the whole backing behind what All In was and what made that special, you can't capture that again. So yeah, if you're going to London to go all in, because Tony is clearly not going broke, because if Tony did make a declaration of saying he was going to go all in, then this shit better look like a Comic-Con mixed with the Super Bowl, mixed with fucking NBA All-Star Weekend, and hell, Freaknik weekend. Throw all of that in there.
Freaknik.
Just do it all at this point, you know. But it's not going to be that. And again, I think that I think we all have seen and attended enough of these shows to kind of get that feeling of, well, the only reason I would go is because I've never been to Wembley, I've never been to London. But if I'm going to go there for the first time, going in to see wrestling is the last thing I'm doing before I'm checking out. I got a whole bunch of other stuff I have to do in order to like make this a fulfilling weekend, because as of right now, there's a card that doesn't exist. So I don't know what gets me excited. But hey, kudos to the folks that can go off the limb and put down blind money without knowing what the results are going to be, without knowing what the presentation is going to be, without knowing the scaling of what the show is going to be. If it's going to be a glorified house show, then expect to get house show quality. Damien, on the opposite of what you do, Saudi Arabia is totally different, which again, Saudi Arabia couldn't do the all-in moniker because is the Saudi prince going to go broke? But he gives you WrestleMania-ish presentation. Like those shows look special. So I think if that's what people are thinking, like, well, if the Saudi prince did it, which the money, listen, we're talking about way different types of money here, okay?
Correct.
But if you're thinking like, hey, they're going overseas, they're going to do something like that. Well, yeah, those are glorified house shows, but would Tony absolutely try to arise to that occasion of what the Saudi prince and them do? We don't know. We don't know. But also I heard nobody else saying, hey, I'm going to Superstars Showdown and whatever all those shows are called, because no one knows what they were going to be originally. But now you got a little bit of grain of confidence that's like, if I did want to go to Saudi Arabia, at least I know I'm getting a WrestleMania-ish type of show, you know? They do one in Dubai. That'd be nuts, by the way.
What if the all-in portion is them going all in just on overseas touring? Like, what if this flops and all of a sudden the matches suck, it's not great quality? Is the all in just them trying to reach a new market and realizing how niche they really are if this fails? Because in this realm, how is it different than when Vince tried WrestleMania for the first time? In the terms of taking a chance on something that may, like you said, Two Champs, make you go broke. Maybe the going broke part for Tony Khan and co. is then they know they can't run overseas because their fan base is so niche and so bubble-fied that it won't travel well. So I think that might be the all-in portion that I'm thinking about if it fails.
Well, I think it's
Paul
interesting.
Says you get it. He says you just nailed it.
I think it's interesting that that they say all in.
Imagine abandoning the whole fan base, though.
Yeah, they say all in on a safe bet.
Correct.
So this isn't exactly, like the biggest risk. I mean, AEW has a massive audience in the UK, a bigger audience in WWE. They can obviously get people to come over from Europe because that's a 2-hour flight from the furthest reaches of Europe or Northern Africa or whatever. So it makes sense logistically. Khan has a presence in the area already for a number of different reasons, and then they have the show, and then of course the show is going to get people hyped, even if it taps out at 52,000. And they can still scale around that. So actually, I think that they don't know what it even looks like yet.
Right.
Because if they sell it out, then expect a smaller presentation, but you get 90,000 people screaming their heads off. If they don't, and they only get 60,000 based on 52 right now, then they could spring for a bigger presentation, WrestleMania style. But you can't do both.
Off one end of the building or something.
Yeah, and you can't do both. And because we're still 3 or 4 months away, they have more than enough time to figure out logistically what that's going to look like. So if they cap out at 75,000, who knows? It could be somewhere in the middle. So there, I think it could be a thing. And I think that also it may sound like we're, kind of denigrating the show a little bit, but we're coming from the perspective of we've been to the shows.
Yeah.
I was just at Dynamite in Baltimore yesterday. I'm going to be back there in June in DC, and we've all been to AEW shows, so this isn't as special as it is to us as it will be for a lot of you out there that are going to the show in Wembley or your first show anywhere for the first time. And there were those moments where I was like, well, goddamn, this is history that I'm looking at. And in a lot of ways, the AEW show in London is going to be that moment for a lot of people. So good on you.
Yeah. And Tony Khan's the numbers person. He will absolutely look at the numbers and keep scaling it up more and more and more. I could imagine he said, let's do 30, let's do 40, let's do 50, let's do 60. He's going to keep packing it until he can. I think at the end of the day, as long as the ticket's sold, then they can go to work on putting the show together.
But
and I think
at this point, they're safe. They got 50,000 people. Yeah. They're breathing easy now. Now it's all gravy at this point, I think. So they'll be good. Let's switch gears with our final moments here, because we need to take a moment and pour one out for the end of AEW Dark and Elevation. I know Jamal is feeling this one because this was his show. Dark and Elevation were his jam, and the word is, as of this week, they are done for the foreseeable future as they begin restructuring for Saturday nights. So, Jamal, get in here first. What this was your show, AEW Dark.
I'll make this quick because we're up against the wall. It's not that Dark and Elevation are going, because for a lot of times, a lot of people that didn't understand the concept questions its very existence. Well, now it ain't there anymore, so shut the hell up. But for me, it was the only real surprise left in AEW. You didn't know who was going to show up. You didn't know what they were going to do. And it wasn't about the wins and losses. It was about the proving ground. And we've seen a number of people whose star power has risen because of Dark, because of that exposure. Well, it's just the YouTube show where if they're wrestling in front of 50 people in Maine, and now you have 25,000 people, watching them over the week, 100,000 over the next week, that raises your star power. And we've seen, I know that I've definitely said, sign that man after Dark, or a performance at Dark. And Willow Nightingale might not be in AEW if it weren't for Dark. Emi Sakura might be back in Japan if it weren't for Dark. And a number of people that had the opportunity to reinvent themselves because of Dark. So it will definitely be missed by me. And if you don't understand, then maybe it's just you're just watching only one show, and that's all it is for you. But cool. Now, the thing that really, really annoys me isn't the fact that it's gone. It's the fact that it was just unceremoniously, rubbed out. For what it was, it came in at the same time that Dynamite did, and it left like the Colts did, from Baltimore in the middle of the night. And sorry, Baltimore, but still, like a thief in the night. And I think, the show deserves a little bit of respect that AEW's given it. And, more than just a clip show, more than just a mention. And they haven't even mentioned anything about Dark. It's just it's the word on the street and the obvious fact that it didn't appear on Tuesday. So it's kind of like, damn, you had something there. It carried you through the pandemic. And then now that you don't need it anymore,
Clearly the pandemic didn't exist. That's what I get from this. But I mean, to give it back to you real quick. I mean, obviously this is speculated by ruling of Warner Brothers Discovery in terms of them wanting to have all of their content be on their networks, which we know that, or we don't know, but it's rumored that the new Collision show is coming. So if you have that, then you can't have these others. As Jay Smarkout, I'm guessing that's what it is CM Punk supposed to debut on Collision. What if they market him for the UK show? He's their biggest draw, in my opinion. He's absolutely their biggest draw, and I think you are going to have to somehow get him within that card. Makes sense. But Jamal, I just want to know, like, how does this? Why would this make sense for Warner Brothers Discovery to want to control the content coming from out of this?
Well, you're working under the assumption that I believe that, because I really don't. And the simple truth is that
how I feel.
Right. The simple truth is that Warner Brothers already has the shows that they want. And, they don't have a problem with Rampage. The people do. Whatever the ratings are for the reality show that they're doing is working well for them too. And of course, Dynamite, even though they had the lowest rating in quite some time, like 750,000, well below their average, because it wasn't a good show. But even though the ratings are whatever they are, they're still better than Warner Brothers ever anticipated. So cool. As far as why can't they why can't they keep Dark and keep Elevation, and then there's just not enough time. And to be fair, Khan doesn't want to spend the money on running multiple dates in a week. So it made sense that they had to go, and then flying back to Florida, taping a month worth of Ring of Honor, and throwing Dark and Elevation in there. The tapings didn't match up. It was kind of losing its way at the end. So I don't believe that that Warner Brothers is so hard on for more AEW content that they had to axe the YouTube show. Like, we want Collision. Well, what about Dark? Fuck them.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't think it was like that.
It's logistics. It's the logistics of adding this Saturday night show.
Yeah, I mean, Khan doesn't want to run more. Khan doesn't want to spend more money. He doesn't have to. Dark isn't necessary to the television audience, but it's necessary to logistics of the brand. So it's like AAA baseball. You would not cut a minor league team. You can't do that. You need people to go somewhere.
Yeah,
it has to coexist.
My
quick
thoughts on this is, if they are getting another show, we know that was not an easy ask. We know Warner Bros. Discovery has been very careful about any type of new content or releases that they have. So if you're going to get a new show, you got to come up with a business plan that makes sense to them. I'm thinking they pitched their numbers for Elevation and Dark and said, this is what we can do. Imagine if we do it on your network. They say, fine. So if that's the case, then those need to go, because why would you let all three of these compete with one another, especially if we were pitching an idea in terms of what these numbers what this show could do on our network, and these are the numbers you had. If you had a choice to check out those shows earlier in the week, and God damn it, this is going to be on a Saturday. If you ain't burnt out, I need to know what you taking.
A hard sell to begin with.
Yeah. So Jamal,
especially when college football starts up.
Yep.
Because I'm a Colorado Buffaloes fan since day one, and day one was last week. So me and Coach Prime ain't watching Collision on Saturday.
So yeah, I think like the best way to kind of navigate that traffic is by letting this be the premier spot for this other this show that could be Dark Elevation altogether, just on the network. So now,
here's the thing, though. You say that it's Dark and Elevation on the network.
I'm just guessing.
I'm saying, like, but if that is the common thought, well, why would they do that when Rampage exists? I mean, and obviously the third show is here, so that is what it is.
You get a check. You get a nice substantial check.
I just can't imagine, as much as I would love to see it happen, I can't imagine QT versus Action Andretti on TNT for no reason. It was a good match. I was there for that match. Star-making match for Action Andretti, but I just can't imagine it happening. I can't imagine them purposely putting on a Saturday night's main event for AEW.
Check. That's all it is. Listen, Warner Bros. Discovery is only caring about the numbers it brings in, and Tony Khan's looking at the check that comes from out of it. Other than that, they said, we've been doing this successfully on this platform for this long with these numbers. We can do it on there. Cool, handshake, and everybody walks the other way. But again, I told you, I do not feel that Warner Bros. Discovery absolutely values wrestling in a way that wrestling fans think they do. Their prime focus.
You know how I know that they don't? Rampage comes on tomorrow at 6:30. Set your DVR.
That's probably our spot right there.
Yep.
I think that nails it. Mm-hmm. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Thursday night, your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast is here each and every week, 8 p.m. Who knows what we'll be getting into next week, because it'll be another drama-filled week. We'll be back from Puerto Rico with a Backlash this weekend, so we'll have that to talk about. And I guess the beginning of the draft, and if we have any more dirt on what's going on with AEW and this Wembley show, or if we even hear about Collision. At some point, this Saturday show has to be announced. At some point, it has to exist. And there's still no word on that. So who knows when that's coming down the pike. But in the meantime, at Big Gold Belt on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all that good stuff. You can always find us at Big Gold Belt. And of course, at biggoldbelt.com on the web for all your wrestling and comic books and entertainment stuff. I'm sure 2 Chains on there can tell you all about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 opening this weekend. He was there for that last week. So we're your one-stop shop for all kinds of stuff, whether it's entertainment, wrestling, comic books, you name it. BigGoldBelt.com. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Always glad to have you here. 8 p.m. Thursday nights. Podcast drops tomorrow, Friday morning on all your favorite podcast platforms. We will see you next week. Thanks for being here, and we will talk to you